Spielberg.
Alec,
Yes,
I am
yes.
low-key excited to get this review underway, all right?
I was gonna say, yeah, low key excited to talk about Loki.
I'm pretty high-key, honestly, but
High key. Okay, well, that's cool. I mean, yeah, same.
I thought it was great. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's get into it right away. This was amazing.
A fun time.
Just a fun, enjoyable romp.
Disney Plus, 3 for 3, I think, for Marvel shows.
I 100% agree with you. I think this is the front where they're killing it the most right now. We'll see when it comes to some of the other Marvel films that are coming out later this year and next year, if they can keep this momentum going. But seemingly, stuff's going to be integrated a little bit more. I think is the indication of this show.
And they've just done such a good job of like complementing all these characters with their own series, like ones that I wouldn't necessarily thought that I would be super interested in, like on the outside, just like, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Wanda and Vision. Like these weren't ones that I was like, oh, I need to see these have their own show, but then they managed to give them something cool and really run with it. And then it's by the end of it, you're like, okay, well, this is great.
Well, one thing I think that's been really wonderful about it is that they've really had a chance, an opportunity to show off, like, yeah, we might be making these like pop culture big budget action movies, but our actors are really, really good. Like we have high caliber talent on these movies. And that's like, to me, that's like, I think the most on display here than I would say. I mean, I would say WandaVision with both of, I would say that's similarly, it's a tour de force. I mean, they're all great. They all have these duos of amazing, like high caliber talent. I don't know. It's hard to, I guess it's hard to choose now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, but it's extremely, I would say it is continuing to be extremely on display here. Tom Hiddleston is wonderful. He's a contemplative Loki for the first time, because it's Loki put in a position where he's completely out of his element, where he's not in control anymore.
Yeah.
And he has to come to grips with it. And it's great.
And this is the last thing I expected from a Loki series, by the way. Like, all I knew was it was gonna be about Loki. And I'm just like, well, I know that Loki's dead now, so it's gotta go back sometime when we go into this series, So, but I didn't know what to expect. This isn't what I was expecting at all,
No, I knew there was going to be some stuff with like maybe a reality or reality jumping, but I didn't expect it to be. I expected it to be like more like Loki's just doing wacky things and trying to uncover a mystery. But it's like, no, Loki is like being forcibly like having to work for this organization, or else he's going to get eliminated.
There's so many cool different elements to it, where it's like it brings in like existential questions, and like you have Mobius, Owen Wilson, just throw him in there, and he's great.
Owen Wilson. I had no idea he was going to be in this, and he's there, and I'm like, oh, and he's like a very important character for like the whole thing.
He's such a good character, too.
And he's wonderful. He's not at all typecast. Like Owen Wilson gets to kind of flex some acting skills here by being like just kind of an average Joe. Yeah, he's just like,
I love him, and I love their chemistry is great.
It's really great. They play off each other super well.
But it's like you go into like all these existential questions where you have Mobius, especially, has to like question his whole reality is basically false by the end of it. He's like got this friend he's had all this time who betrays him, and he's got this whole job that was built on a lie, and then his whole reality comes crashing down. But like they pose the questions throughout, just like the idea of like, is any of this real or whatever, and he just believes because he chooses to believe, and that kind of thing. Yeah. But then you go from that into like straight up time traveling adventures. There's a lot of stuff that actually reminded me of Rick and Morty. There's like like the way they referred to the Lokis as like Lokis. There was a whole world in like Rick and Morty where they're like, oh, we gotta find the other Ricks, or those are the other Mortys, and they do some similar stuff in there, there's just so many different things mixed in, because there's like a love story element, there's like
that
story
was
of friendship, and
That was awesome. I was 100%. I know probably some people are like a little weirded out, but I'm 100% on board. I thought it was awesome.
I'm a sucker for any love, so even when it was loving another version of yourself,
it's okay, to me it makes perfect sense. With all the beings in the entire universe, a narcissist would fall in love with a different version of himself.
Mm-hmm.
It made complete sense, and it made sense for the character. It made sense for the arc, the journey they went on together. It was great. I thought their chemistry was wonderful. Actress's name, I don't remember. She was stupend. She was awesome. She was great. I loved every second she was on screen.
They always just pick great like small cast, like in Marvel, like when you pick their few main characters, they're always great, you know.
Yeah, you had Gugu Mbatha-Raw, who was the Mobius's, I think, superior, and then you've had that other security guard lady,
so it's Sophia I don't remember her name. Di Martino is Sylvie, okay. Sophia,
but she was great. She was great. I thought what a great character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like all the roles and everything that everybody played, I thought they picked just perfect casting all across the board. So
and something about like the relationships and stuff really is like resonated with me, where it's like she has these trust issues, and I like how it was like Loki was like, I'm the one who can't be trusted and you can't trust.
Yeah,
it was really cool, like how they battled with that. Because it's almost like, you know, in the end they had the whole thing where it's like, oh, it's really frustrating that she does this thing on her own, but it's like it makes sense. You know, usually that's a really frustrating thing to happen in movies, where it's like, oh, the character acting out, you know, not listening to reason, but it's like I think it's justified here, you know. They built up how she's justified in having these trust issues.
Yeah.
And then so when she doubts Loki, it's like I kind of get that too, even though that's usually a frustrating character trope to work with.
Yeah, I thought they did it in a way that made so much sense. I agree with you. That can be a frustrating thing where it's like, oh, I don't trust you anymore. I mean, I guess we sort of had the sort of friend betrayal sort of thing, or you can't trust a friend. That sort of thing was sort of at play a little bit in Luca, but I thought it worked so much better here. And I'm somebody who didn't really mind it so much in Luca, but I thought it worked just so much better here, just because it had been built up over the course of the series, and it just worked really well in terms of how the arcs of the characters sort of developed.
Because like you get it, 'cause she was lied to, you know, and like betrayed so personally by this, and then like she hasn't had any friends all her life, basically. So it's very hard to just trust someone.
I thought,
especially when you know it's a Loki, and you know you've lied yourself.
Yeah, I thought the ultimate conclusion was what her decision was great, because it ended up that she did sort of trust him, but not to the point where she could just let him convince her to do anything else. It was like, I trust you. I don't believe you're doing anything underhanded, but I'm still going to do this anyways, because this is what I feel is right.
This is me. Yeah. I'm not you.
Right.
But also, He Who Remains, I thought he was great too.
Yeah. So this is the thing that's going to tie this into the future of this series, because they've even said Loki will return for season 2. But he's going to be showing up in, I think, of all movies coming up, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, because that actor is set to play Kang the Conqueror. And Kang the Conqueror is a variant of He Who Remains. Nice. So, which is what he was warning about, where he's like, you don't want to have to deal with the other versions of me. I've already culled all of them to make a timeline in which I think is the best for everybody. So yeah, he was wonderful. He was such a great character. He's basically like a god of sorts. I mean, like he's culled a timeline to be like, this is how everything must fit because I say so.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the way that's the best for everybody. Because I have to. It's almost like I have to control myself. I'm too terrified of what I can bring to the entire universe, which therefore makes it. Well, no, I should have the best version of everybody that makes sense to me in the whole universe. So he's cut the whole timeline down to a single strand.
But there's so many layers to it, where like Sylvie's saying, "Oh, you see people as just like
Pawns.
a game."
To a point, she's totally right. Like it's.
But then to him, he's seeing it from a much bigger picture. Yeah, he's like, well, if I don't do this, then there's going to be chaos,
and there's going to be thousands. There's going to be hundreds of me. There's versions of me that you don't want to have to deal with, kind of thing.
And he's like, if you want to, I know you don't want to deal with the devil here, but you'll be dealing with infinite devils. Otherwise, it's like. But his performance was great. Like he was just monologuing for so long, but he just like sucked me in. It
was so captivating. Think about this. We haven't had. This is a finale in which there is some action, but most of it is like explaining what was really going on. And I think some people were. like, "Oh, we're doing it again. They did that in WandaVision. They did that in Falcon the Winter Soldier." And it's like, to a point in Falcon and Winter Soldier, they didn't really do it in that. They did do it in WandaVision, but it was also in like a big whiz bang huge finale. This was like a very like psychological and like dramatic sort of like grappling with this sort of existential idea of different realities, and absolutely captivating. Wonderful script writing.
I was drawn in. I was like, I was fully dialed in. I was like, let me take notes. Good stuff.
It was great. No, it was really, really solid. I thought it was just such a great, interesting way to end your season of your series. You know, you don't have to have a huge explosive finale. It's more of a cerebral experience, you know? So.
And it's like such a contrast when you go into this like beaten down building or just like not kept up at all. And it's just cracks everywhere, and it's like all spooky. Like, what are we gonna see? And then he's just this guy who's got all this charisma. He's just fun. He's happy to be there. But then he's like, he knew everything up till a point.
Mm-hmm.
But then he was just enjoying himself afterwards. Like, I like the little shots where he's in the background, just like. And when they're kissing, he's just like watching.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of lingered in the background because like, ooh, this is fun now. Let's see what's gonna happen. But yeah, it was great.
It was like he had determined that of all beings, these two variants of reality were so compatible to the point where they cause a Nexus event in a Nexus event that that he was just like, this is too perfect. They have to be the ones to carry on my work, basically, or not carry on my work, whatever they decide. Which is just,
by the way,
wild.
that Nexus event is like, that's the end of Rogue One right there. They're sitting there waiting for themselves to die, and they're like bonding. They give me such Rogue One vibes.
There was a lot of really great stuff like that.
They could have hopped into the end of Rogue One. That could have been a good place to hide. One of the apocalypse.
Hopped into the Star Wars. We'll just go into Star Wars.
Just start crossing over. That was a cool concept too. The idea that's like, since they're always keeping track of all the time variants, like that the other Loki, who turned out to be Sylvie, would be hiding in these apocalyptic events where nothing leading up to the event matters or would alter the time at all, so you could hide out there without being noticed.
Yeah, so dramatic
concept.
Or dramatic world-shattering events, billions dying when a planet collapses, or a flood. I think it was like a hurricane or something was sort of one of them. I think it was like a flood where everybody died. Destroyed the whole facility, like a superstorm.
Yeah.
In Louisiana. Yeah.
It was like Arkansas, right?
Maybe it was Arkansas. There was another one in Arkansas, Oklahoma. Oh, Oklahoma, where the wind.
And then
Yeah.
there was Pompeii was there.
Oh, Pompeii. Yeah, that was
I
great.
like how
Yeah, I like that.
it's like weirdly dark.
Yeah. There's.
It's just like, oh, they're all gonna die, so whatever.
So what does it matter? Yeah.
I've always thought about that. That's just been like a philosophical question I've thought about before. It's like the moments leading up to something like that.
Mm.
It's so weird to think about because it's like, yeah, there's no like evidence of what happened, but people did experience the moments up to that. So it's like, what was going on?
Mm.
And then they just kind of dip in there.
Yeah, I mean, we some of the archaeological data from sites like Pompeii actually can reveal like what people were doing. Some were like cowering in fear in their homes. Other people were running in the streets. There was a lot of you see that the different varied responses to a crisis, basically to their death.
So sad.
It's
so sad to think about now.
It is. It's also fascinating. It's sad. It's tragic because none of them. I don't know. Maybe they didn't take it seriously enough. But
that whole what's the name of that place? The name is like the second or third episode. There's almost like a cyber punky planet.
Yes. Oh yeah, that place was awesome.
Like that.
Yeah. That place was great. Yeah,
was great. I thought they had a lot of cool visual stuff in this series and like cool different locations that we got to go around that you can't really explore in other series.
Yeah, it was a kind of world hopping sort of adventure. It was very fun.
It was fun, but that place was really cool visually, and then it was interesting seeing the lead up to that. And it's like the Ark was like the ship that was supposed to get off, but it never makes it off.
Mm.
And so their last ditch effort was to try to get on there and make sure it gets off of the planet in time, but then you just see it goes down
just gets
anyway.
demolished. Yeah, it gets destroyed. Yeah,
what leads up to the Nexus event where they have this crazy connection.
Mm. The music was amazing.
Yeah.
There was they used the Flight of the Valkyries. In I think the second to last episode where the Loki variants were trying to help them get into the sort of after the end of the timeline area. The music was like a play on Wagner, the Flight of the Valkyries, which just fits so perfectly with Norse mythology. Lokis are trying to help the other Loki variants. So yeah, Loki's being around in general, that was all wonderful.
Yeah.
Particularly Crocodile Loki.
Yeah, so it was after you get pruned, so they set up.
Yeah.
I mean, Marvel likes doing this thing where it's like you die, but then you're not really dead,
Yeah.
It's like, there's going to be some way to save him. I thought it would have been kind of baller if after like Loki was pruned, they had like a whole episode without him or something. I thought that would be pretty cool. Like you just follow Sylvie or something. And then it would have made it like more dramatic when he came back into it. But then you go right into the end credit scene. It's like, okay, he's there.
Yeah.
And then they show
They really wanted to explore that whole idea of there being a bunch of Lokis teaming up.
Yeah.
And then even more Lokis that hate all of them and are deceiving one another. That was great.
That was cool. Like it just got wacky in there when they just all started fighting and stuff.
Yeah, crocodile, alligator Loki just bites off the hand of vote for me Loki.
Yeah.
I
love that Loki where he's like, how about my army and then my throne? And then they're like, yeah, about that. It's all the double crossing from the different Lokis.
Yeah, it was funny.
You can't work with these Lokis.
No, except for the Richard E. Grant, who was the old Loki, who seemed to have been a variant of a Loki that the variation must have happened later on in the timeline because he seemed to remember. Oh, the variation was he was basically the same Loki except instead of dying to Thanos at the beginning of Infinity War, he was like, "No, I thought about that. Knives don't work against a Titan." So I pretended to die, and then I just sort of drifted away. And then when I reassembled, I was caught. So
there's a lot of cool stuff they went into, and like when I didn't know anything about the series going into it, I didn't expect to be delving so deeply into like alternate or like multiversal war and all this stuff, you know, all these time variants. And
yeah, I want so badly for Owen Wilson's character to get his water ski,
his jet ski.
I wanted him so badly. I was like, what a simple dream. It's just like, it's so charming.
Just like the Vespa,
like that's the one thing.
Luca.
Yeah, it's just like, it's just such a charming little, like, yeah, I mean, my work's the most important thing, but like, you know, it'd be fun to own a jet ski.
I mean, he took all that news like a champ. Like he's not like a young kid that just got into this TVA stuff. Like he's
been there for ages
in the trenches with that stuff, and then he just found out that okay, it's all built on a lie, and you know, we've been orphaning people when we didn't have to, and you know, they took us from our previous lives.
I think for him there was always sort of my understanding of kind of like why that was, there was always this sort of like in the back of his mind a sort of doubt that he just ignored. That's kind of why to me it was sort of like because when he is coming to terms with it, he's upset. He is upset. He's angry at Loki
but not nearly as angry as I would expect someone.
I suppose that's true. Yeah.
He took it like a champ. His friend betrayed him.
Yeah.
And he still had time to have some like fun little zingers in there at the end. He's like, he's back.
Yeah.
But it's like that's like reality crushing stuff right there.
Yeah.
Like all this stuff you've done, all this horrible stuff that you thought was a means to an end, you know, when you really just kind of been propagandized to do it.
Jerked around by, it's like, okay, well then the time, what were they called again? The
Time Variance Authority.
They're the TVA. I'm trying to think what the three supposed like heads of the
keepers.
The timekeepers. Who ended up all being a big farce.
That felt like almost a Doctor Who-esque too. Like
it did. That felt very. A lot of this actually sort of did remind me of probably like. I'm trying to think if it would be more. I think it's more Moffat Who. So Moffat was the second showrunner. That's like the Matt Smith stuff. It felt a lot more like that because there's parts of it that were like, well, not all the loose ends were tied up at the end. So the Russell the previous showrunner, who I can't remember, Russell E. Davies, his sort of like the way he told a story would be like leaving a lot of Chekhov's guns everywhere, and then everything would wrap up very neatly and very smartly by the end of the season. Mm-hmm. Moffat was, I'm going to leave a bunch of this information everywhere, and it's going to go all over the place, and I'm not going to wrap up everything at the end of the season. I will wrap up some of it, but there's going to be threads that go on for literally the whole time I'm the showrunner until I wrap it up then. So it feels a little bit more like that, where it's sort of like a little scattershot all over the place, but in a way that feels like they know what they're doing. You can trust that they know what they're doing, the writers of this. And yeah, I was along for the ride. It was great.
So I was kind of worried going into it. I wasn't sure how to take the whole timeline thing, basically, because the idea of the TVA that they were setting up from the beginning was that like you don't really have a control over anything. You don't have free will. And so I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that, going into like this was all just predestined, and you know, you play a part, and you don't really have control. So it's like, oh, that kind of sullies or softens the significance of like anything in the Marvel cinematic universe if it's all just a part of a story, you know. But I don't know. I liked where they went with it. But just this idea that like, okay, Loki, you're just there to make these guys be a better version of themselves, like you. And then you see like the variants are like the one that killed Thor, the kid, and they all do stuff out of line. So it's like,
yeah. So
it's like, but all their uniqueness it kind of waters that down a little bit. So I don't know.
I mean, you would think that isn't that that's almost the nature of fiction, right? Particularly as there's that great meta commentary where he literally pulls out the script and shows it to them.
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny. I like that a lot.
That was funny, but I'm like, oh. then what's really the point of anything we're watching here, you know? In conclusion, Loki is really interesting and touches on a lot of interesting concepts. I thought it was great, okay?
Yeah. It was interesting because, like, the ending was weird because it wasn't a conclusion, right? It didn't feel necessarily satisfactory until they were like, there's a season 2 coming. And I was like, okay, good.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of like, hey, there's that guy that you had just killed, and now the statues of him and not of the timekeepers. That's kind of wild. And then that's how it ends. So I was like, oh
yeah, and then you go and Mobius doesn't know who Loki is, and
yeah,
it already had effect immediately. So it's like, it's a lot to get into there.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of intrigue involved.
So I'm very much looking forward to season 2. Again, performances were wonderful. The writing was really good. Yeah, I just want to get back into that world again for a little longer. So, yeah.
So what score would you give this out of 10?
I would probably give this a 9. I really liked this a lot. Again, acting was really good. It's like they keep finding new ways to sort of one-up themselves in terms of how they're telling a story. Like this story, they could have told in a movie, but it wouldn't have been nearly as effective. So they're using the format super well. I think naturally, I think WandaVision used it the best, just in terms of like you literally can't tell this story except in a TV show, whereas this is like you could tell the story in a movie, but it's much better suited, and they're using the format of a television program to make it as just that much better. So, yeah, I loved it. I thought it was wonderful.
I think I'll give it a 9 out of 10 also.
Yeah.
Tarqaron score 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
I mean, like my first impression was an 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
that would be every Marvel show so far has been 8.5.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's definitively. I guess we're saying it's definitively the best one so far.
I think it is. I hesitate to put it above WandaVision because I think that show is just wonderful. But I think overall this was as consistent throughout. There's new wrinkles, new twists, new turns in the story, and it just kept you wanting more up until the very end. And like I said, the kind of restraint to show to have your finale not be like a huge action-packed thing, but instead to be like a fairly long script, like that's ballsy. And I think that they did it. I thought it was great. I love stuff like that. You know, like JRPGs. That's like my thing, right? Where you have like long cutscenes where you're just explaining things. They don't have to be long, or they don't have to be like action-packed moments. Sometimes the most interesting wild moments are when things are just being explained to you.
It was like straight up backstory.
Yeah. So
and we talked about Loki and Mobius. Their chemistry is great, but I mean also just it's a nice wholesome friendship too.
Their friendship was really great. Yeah.
What a great friendship to explore. So you explored like friendship and love for him, and
yeah. I also really liked him being put into that one moment, the punishment loop room. I really liked that a lot because it was like, even though he'd been in there for, a while and he'd gone through it countless times, it was like, he was still trying to get through to her the whole time. And I was like, I thought that was great. It shows you like that this isn't the same Loki that we knew in the movies. Like that Loki did go on his own character arc, but this one is at a period of time where he hasn't been on his character arc yet, so he's going through a different one.
And from the very beginning, you can see that he has like he loved he loved his family and everything as he's going through the memories and stuff. You could tell
he's forced to come to that conclusion much earlier.
Yeah, to
admit to himself that all that stuff, and that's great. I love that. So
yeah. It was wonderful. And he just explored so many different themes and cool time traveling parallel universe concepts too. It's like
and it didn't do it in a way that was like overly. I mean, I like my heady sci-fi, but I don't think this did it in a way that was too confusing to your average popcorn munching Joe. So
I mean, the fact that they had a stack of papers with everything he said, and that there's no way, like the print had to be so tiny for it to fit into that stack of papers they had, right? It was like, sign this.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like giving the benefit of the doubt because you technically didn't see all the pages. There could be the tiniest print possible, but it's like he's lived how long? How many years? Like, I would have more pages than that, and he's lived like a lot more than I have. So
yeah, that's true.
But yeah, so 9 out of 10, not too shabby. I'm waiting for the first flub, the one where it's like, oh, this wasn't good.
Well, let's see what we got. What do we got coming up? We've got you get Marvel What If, which is going to be an animated series.
Oh yeah, that starts like really soon, right?
It starts really soon, yeah. I don't remember what else there is on
Hawkeye?
the TV slate. Oh, the Hawkeye show.
Some point.
Yeah. I think that's late. I think that's later in the year. I think that might be like October, November. So, yeah.
But yeah, if there's any show I want a season 2 for, it's this one. So I'm glad
for sure. Yeah.
WandaVision, fine leaving it as is, if I need to. I'm fine. Yep. And Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I guess we'll get Captain America and the Winter Soldier, right?
Yeah, but, I mean, I'd be okay with that. And sort of like I said, I would like, if they do a season 2 of that, I would like it to end with the conclusion of Captain America and the White Wolf. I think that would just be a nice little, neat little bow.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised he's already transitioned away from the Winter Soldier. So in retrospect, I was like, well, shouldn't it still be named the Winter Soldier if they changed his name?
I guess, but but in that case, we'll focus the season a little bit more on him
because it was Captain America and Bucky.
It was a lot more about Sam's journey this time around. So,
but he said, I'm no longer the Winter Soldier. This is part of my way to make amends, you know?
Yeah.
So it could just have been Cap and Bucky.
Cap and Bucky. Season 2. All right.
But yeah, there's so much there's just so much here that I feel like there's still so much more to explore. So
I agree.
And I love time hopping and alternate, multiversal war. Great stuff.
Yeah. Wild stuff.
All right. What video would you recommend our viewers go watch after this?
I think people should go watch our review of. You should go check out High Score because that has a timeline. We follow from like early origins of gaming. We follow all the way kind of up a little bit
so
to the modern
timeline
era.
Involved.
There's a timeline involved. Yeah.
Interesting. Well,
go check it out.
Good thing you said that, because if you had said like a different review, you would have been a variant at that point.
It would have been. I was almost thinking Sonic and the Secret Rings, because he's hopping into different eras, and in the 101 Arabian Nights, he's just going around all over the place. It's like not all of that's in the ancient world. There's some of that that looks pretty modern.
All of our pruned versions of ourselves are like just people like versions that said different review suggestions at at the end. I suggested extremely wicked, shockingly evil, and vile at the end of the Loki review.
Yeah, there's variants of us all coming up with different ideas there. Think about that. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it.
Well, thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing and hitting the notification bell and liking and commenting, following us on Twitter and Instagram, and liking us on Facebook. Tarqaron TWO.
What's going on? What's happening over there?
All right.